When a man has a father wound, he struggles to listen to the words of his woman without being triggered into anger and defensiveness. He thinks that she's criticizing him, trying to change him, or ungrateful for his hard work. But he doesn't realize that it's actually him who is so easily offended because of his unhealed trauma. He can't feel the underlying message under her words, which is really just a desire for closeness, to feel his love in some form, such as asking for more of his time. He instead interprets her words through the filter of the turmoil of his past, which equates to she's saying I'm not good enough. As a young boy, for one reason or another, he learned to disown his emotions. He was taught that they're weak, or he wasn't allowed to have any feelings. So he's repressed all the volatility, the pain, the abandonment, the heartbreak, the neglect of his past. And what happens is he keeps projecting this onto his woman because he hasn't learned to release it. Because he can be triggered so easily, his woman has to walk on eggshells around him, spending so much of her energy having to think ahead of time and censor her words just to avoid triggering those defenses. And over the months or years, this drains and depletes her. She is exhausted from nurturing his unmet needs whilst he isn't able to pour back into her emotionally. And over time, having to live in fear around him makes her body stressed and even sick. He says things like, "You're just being too sensitive, you're ungrateful. Back in my day, we just got on with things. What are you talking about? What is this emotional safety stuff?" He thinks that by providing financially, he's done all that a man should do, and everything else is her responsibility. But this is a huge delusion, which is dangerous to himself, which is wrecking his woman's heart and the emotional safety of his entire home. This man needs to recognize that providing financial and physical safety in today's world is less than half of the equation. Because if emotional safety isn't present, if you cannot talk with both strength and calmness in your heart, a safety and a kindness in your eyes, then you will systematically destroy the health of the people around you. That's a short introduction to the style of father wound that I'll be discussing today. There are many different types, but this one is the most destructive. And if you're a woman, this can relate to you too, with a few key differences, which I'll be discussing in another video. So what is the father wound? Well, it's an umbrella term for the emotional damage that you received from the relationship with your father, which is another way of saying the lack of physical and verbal love, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. What I'm about to dive deep into can be caused by having a volatile father who is living in the house, or having a father that wasn't even in your life at all, by whom you felt abandoned. Let's get started with the roots of the father wound. Every young boy wants to look up to his father like he's a Superman, the source of wisdom, strength, protection. As a frail young boy who doesn't yet know the ways of the world, father is the guy who sets the blueprint for how to live this life, how to carry yourself as a man, what to expect from women, how to treat women, how to relate to other people in the world. Is the world full of enemies and people who will stab you in the back, or is it a friendly world? Whatever you learned from the relationship with your father will become the blueprint that you transfer into your own relationship and your workplace. For most men, their father was a traditional, hard-working man who really is numb to his emotions just to survive the brutal working conditions of his day. So he's out working long hours, he gets home, he's stressed, exhausted, angry, irritable, and what he's looking for from his wife and children is a source of love, respect, excessive respect, anything that can soothe the hardships of his day. Now, what this does in the atmosphere of the home is it creates a thick cloud of tension. The moment he comes in, for many wife and kids, there's already a fear of offending him. The main thought is, what can I do right now not to upset daddy? And dad is both a victim and an authority figure, which creates a very strange complex in the family home. The children and wife are thinking, wait a minute, here's my great protector, but at the same time, I live in constant fear of offending him and facing his wrath. And that really does a job in the bodies and minds of the family, because it's severely traumatizing. Because the guy who was supposed to protect you and keep you safe, you're afraid of, genuinely living in fear, which means his family learned to strap on armor. They develop over time various coping mechanisms and defenses and people-pleasing methods and repressing their needs and desires and ignoring who they are and what they want in life just to make daddy happy because they love him. And here's what's really important here. Here's the paradox. I love him, but part of me hates him at the same time because I see him mistreating mom or mistreating me. So what does a child do with this? Well, they become contorted in their mind. They do something which goes like this. In order to protect the self-image of dad, of my father, who I love and who I want to keep on a pedestal, I'll justify, ignore, and even repress my emotions of feeling neglected and abandoned, and just keep working hard, keep doing what needs to be done to please him. And in that process, where the young boy is getting belittled by father, he's criticized a lot. He might be outside raking some leaves or inside doing some dishes, washing a car, and the father just comes and says, this is not enough. What are you doing? You should be better. This should be more. And he often gets hit or just belittled seemingly out of the blue. So all in all, the ratio of criticism received by father is much higher than physical touch of love, verbal expressions of appreciation. Hey son, I love you. I just want you to know you're enough, and I'm so proud that you're my son. Very few men ever heard those words. Now here's where it gets very important. Listen to me carefully. In the heart of every man who was once a young boy, is a deep craving that I want to hear the words, you're enough and I love you. And the less he got that, the more punishment or abandonment a man got. There is a deep void in that heart that says, I am deprived of respect, I am deprived of love, I am worthless. He becomes insecure. But in order to feel like a man, by God, I cannot show this to my father or the world, that I feel all this pain inside. Now he gets really twisted because he puts on his battle armor and he identifies with his battle armor, which is his defenses, his overly logical mind, his desire to conquer the world, achieve, get more, be better, learn more, bigger business, more employees, more women, whatever it is. The desire to conquer comes because deep down he feels small and worthless. Why does he feel small and worthless? Because his first masculine protector wasn't giving him the love he craved for. As a boy, he found that he wasn't even allowed to use his voice and express that his dad was hurting him, or express that maybe, just maybe, the way you're carrying yourself, father, is bad for me. Now, when you're not allowed to question your father, you grow up and have the same rule for your wife and kids. You shouldn't question me. All the authority that he had to submit to as a young boy, he now carries himself that way and says, I need to soothe myself from my past by getting all the respect I didn't get in the past. And when he was a kid, he used to wonder, why is dad so obsessed with this respect thing? Why does he feel disrespected so easily? Well, it's because his father went through the same thing when he was a kid. He was deprived of respect. And this is what we call generational trauma. And if you're listening to this video, you're probably interested in breaking that chain. So now you've got a boy growing up who learned to live in a constant state of bracing for danger. In his own home, he's learned to wear armor, carry a shield, and expect worst case scenarios. Expect to be stabbed in the back, which is another word for feeling betrayed by his father. When you feel betrayed, father left me, or father was never kind to me, there's a deep sense of betrayal that lives in the heart constantly. And as he grows older, the man forgets all of this because he had to cut off his emotions. So everything I've just described lives in his body, and he's become blind to it. All he knows about himself is his personality, and his personality is actually a coping mechanism to keep him safe from the pain of his past. This kind of father wound usually leads to a very ambitious, driven, disciplined man. The kind of man who building a big business appeals to. The kind of man who being a disciplinarian appeals to. Very regimented lifestyle. Maybe the army appeals to him. Maybe being a devoted follower of a religion appeals to him, because the strict confines of discipline and logic are what keep him safe from feeling his emotions. What you felt deprived of as a child, you will seek to overcompensate for as an adult. Now think about this. He felt deprived of these three things: love, respect, safety. So what does he do as an adult? Okay, I will take love from my wife to get it, and he doesn't see that he's not pouring love back into her through emotional intelligence, calm communication, kindness, thoughtfulness, emotional nurturing. Since I was deprived of respect, I will take what's mine in the world. I will make sure nobody says a bad thing about me, and if they do, I'll show them what I'm made for, which is all the unhealed rage of my past. Since I was deprived of physical and emotional safety, I'll build the highest, thickest walls around me. I'll build an empire which acts like a psychological and emotional fortress, keeping people out. I won't trust anyone because anyone might betray me. Women can't be trusted, men can't be trusted. I need a backup plan for everything. What this means is he is operating in massively wounded masculine energy. He's so imbalanced. He lives in survival mode. Life feels like a threat which needs to be conquered. He doesn't know inner peace. He doesn't actually enjoy the beauty of life, though he might be very good at pretending like he does. What he's really doing is always looking for the next dopamine high to temporarily soothe the inner anxiety and feelings of incompleteness, unworthiness. This creates massive problems in his personal life and in his work life. So starting with the personal life, the problem is when you're living in victim consciousness. I was deprived of this and that as a child, which he actually was, but you can heal and you'll no longer feel that way. So carrying the weight, the burden, the pain of the past with him, he lives feeling like both a victim and a hero in his own little story, in his own mind. Every conversation he has with his woman or his family or his kids, his underlying agenda is, how can I win? How can I prove them wrong? How can I prove myself to be more right, more intelligent, more authoritative? What this does is it prevents him from ever creating a truly loving bond, because love doesn't know dominance. Love has no sense of separation, right or wrong. Love is a unity of two. It's two becoming one, which is impossible if you want to win, or if you want to be right, or if you don't trust the other. At home is where the real tragedy happens, because he genuinely thinks that his woman, the very person who loves him, is against him, because he thought that his father was against him, or rather he knew that his father was against him in many ways, or left him. This shatters the heart of his woman to pieces, because women are more naturally in their hearts. They're guided by a deeper intuitive wisdom, which men also have, but when they're carrying trauma, they can't access that wisdom. They can only think about everything. They intellectualize everything. This wounded man with the father wound, he ends up analyzing her words, picking her feelings apart, instead of simply relax into the heart, feel. Can you feel her? Can you feel that she's just sad? Can you feel that she's so fragile? Can you feel that this woman is like a flower and you're coming with a blade and cutting it to pieces with your analysis? Wounded masculine energy is like a samurai sword, a sharp blade. He uses it in the world to cut things up, to create physical safety, to operate the business. The intellect is like a blade. But if you bring that same blade to your woman, to your relationship, where the softness of feminine energy is required. Yes, men have both masculine and feminine energy. Imagine me asking you to hold a sharp blade and to squeeze it. And I think that if I ask you to squeeze it and bond with my sword, well, that means we're in a good relationship. But I don't realize that I'm asking you to cut yourself on the sharpness of my blade. That's what he does when he's over-analytical and judgmental towards her. He doesn't know how to drop the masculine energy and relate with the feminine, the heart. The second destructive thing that happens is in his workplace. He genuinely thinks that he lives a stressful life, but he doesn't. You could run $1 million company with 40+ employees and all the bells and whistles and moving parts. But if your body is feeling safe, if you know how to take a deep breath and to not need to control every little thing and to let life flow organically, to believe in people, to believe in the process, your stress level will not be high. Guaranteed you'll enjoy the process and it'll feel beautiful. Being stressed means your body is in fight or flight mode, which means you perceive the outside world as threatening. You're being attacked. Your biology is responding as though something is trying to kill you, which again is just a reference to your past. Because the terror of an angry father who a lot of boys don't even dare to look at him in the eyes, it fills you with the same terror where you think a shark is going to eat you. So all that's happening is that same sense of terror is coming into the workplace. If I don't earn more money, I'll die. If I don't get this perfectly, it means I'm not good enough. So on and so forth. And that's a very dangerous hamster wheel because it never ends. There's always another expansion, another acquisition, another business deal, another car, another woman, another something. But that emptiness cannot be filled by anything external. It has to be filled with the love of your own heart. He doesn't realize that his entire life is actually a revenge mission, trying to overcome the sense of deep inadequacy from his past, trying to achieve things in the world to feel big instead of small, which is what he feels inside. Taking love from other people, demanding to be soothed and respected instead of being an outpouring of love and emotional safety for others. One of the biggest pain points for his woman or family is that they feel that nothing he does actually comes purely from love. It comes with strings attached. Because then, when his woman expresses that I don't feel emotionally safe, I feel like you're too strict, too rigid, too angry with me, I feel like you don't really respect me, he perceives that as such deep criticism, and all he knows to do is bring up all the hard work that he's been doing and say, you don't appreciate all my efforts, you don't appreciate the sacrifices I do, and he plays the victim. In terms of how he looks, he tends to be very rigid. He may stack on muscle or just a lot of weight because he's stress eating. He tends to be alpha, macho, or narcissistic, which is all armor for the void within. I want to move to how the healing is done and what kind of shifts can happen. But before I do that, it's important to note that despite all the toxic energy he gives out into this world, he's not a bad person deep down. None of us are. We're all born as pure beings. And if you've watched this video this far, then, like me, it means you care enough about the inner workings of a human to understand them, not to just judge them and say, you're a narcissist, or slap on the really unforgiving labels that the modern world tends to do. This doesn't mean he's not accountable for his actions, and this doesn't take away from the catastrophic damage which happens to everyone who receives his energy. As a woman who has a partner like this, or even if your own father or any relative is around and they're behaving this way and they're not actually choosing to heal, to improve themselves, you need to distance yourself from them, to set boundaries, to regulate your nervous system, to heal the trauma that you've received. I want to say that the reason I'm so passionate about healing this kind of man is firstly because I was that man. My father is that man, and he is also on his own journey, and it's been incredible, all the breakthroughs we're having. But ultimately, everything I've described on this video is the small scale damage of having a father wound. The bigger scale damage, the planetary effect that this has, is that men are so insecure, so logical, so cut off from the oneness of life, that they have drawn imaginary lines into the earth and built atom bombs and threaten to drop them on their own brothers and sisters who they label as different. That I'm American, you're Russian, I'm Indian, you're Bulgarian, or whatever it is. All these delusions of the mind that create separation and are threatening our species with maybe a new world war, or the violent consciousness of man transferring into AI and becoming a new threat to us, or the soil and forest extinction that man is blindly doing. Why would you cut the very trees that bring the oxygen to your lungs? The trees on which my existence stands. Why would I cut those down? Well, it's because I feel so small, so obsessed with conquering, so powerless, that the only thing that can make me feel powerful is ruthless domination. And whether that's ruthless domination through business competition, athlete competition, or wiping out species of trees and animals, it's all the same thing. It makes life divided. It cuts you off from the very organism that supports your own life, which is Mother Earth. So that's the macro planetary devastation happening from this father wound. On the micro scale, the man gets cut off from the organism that sustains his heart and wants the best for him, which is his woman or his kids. He subconsciously makes an enemy of everyone and everything unless they do things his way. Anyone or anything that doesn't fit inside the little box of his logic is perceived as a threat or just weird. I think this video has gone on a little longer than I expected, so instead of talking about how the healing is done, I want to highlight the beautiful, life-changing effects of what the healing does. Well, I want you to rate your stress scale from 0 to 10, 10 being extreme stress, your average digit for where your stress level sits. And typically for the really high-driven, ambitious people, it's anywhere from 8 to 10. 7 is a good average, which means you're living most of your life miserable, but you're just pretending to be happy, right? Because one cannot possibly be happy if their body is filled with anger, anxiety, and rush. That stress level has to be below a 3 on average for you to be able to relax and enjoy this moment and feel the hearts of other people and truly relate with them, connect with them. In my coaching programs, I have seen couples break down and their whole body is shaking. I work with men one-to-one, it's the same thing. Healing looks like crying out all the pain of your past instead of letting that pain own you and run you. Instead of being a slave to your past, you've freed yourself from those shackles. And the process isn't pretty. It takes deep grieving, but the results are magnificent. Once you're no longer carrying 10 tons of weight from your past, there's a lightness in your body. There's a sparkle in your eyes. And you've freed up so much energy that you have the capacity to sense the emotional energies of others. And for example, a man who's speaking to his woman and his woman's upset over something that he doesn't logically get, he may disagree with her thoughts, but because his heart is open, he can just feel that all she needs is a hug. She doesn't need my intellect to dissect her feelings. She just needs to feel that, baby, I love you, I'm here for you. He grabs her, holds her, and this alone can fill her with all the joy and bring the radiance back to her skin. The glow that just blooms from her. An emotionally safe man will literally bloom his woman like she's the most beautiful flower. But the wounded man will take his blade and chop that flower down, and that poor flower will continue loving him, regenerating itself, crying and healing itself, and he comes back and chops it down over and over because he can't release his own anger and unhappiness. So massive changes happen at home. He becomes playful. He's no longer wearing a constant frown in his eyebrow. He's no longer offended so easily. Now he becomes actually powerful. He's not looking for power on the outside, he's full on the inside. Now he's practically impossible to trigger or to offend, because what is there to be worried about when you feel truly whole within? Why would you feel like people are going to betray me if you actually truly love yourself within and you no longer need the constant approvals or yeses or other people to do and agree with what you say? So now what happens is his woman can actually lean on him emotionally. She can actually drop her guards and fully relax in his presence because she knows he's not going to be offended. He can feel where I'm at, and his vast, safe, strong but loving presence just envelopes her, and she'll turn into a little girl who will give him everything because her heart can always feel his, and her knowing that his heart is open, it just sends her into ecstasy. If you're a man or woman who relates to anything in this video, if this has spoken to you, please listen carefully. Right now the Unity program is running, and also the Peace program is open. The details are on my website. These are two life-altering programs where, through the power of meditation, breath work, and accessing the subconscious to release all this grief, all this weight from your past, you will change for life. There will be a radiance, an inner calm, and a sense of love that blossoms inside of you. We have a beautiful community of seekers inside there, couples, singles, who are all supporting each other on this beautiful mission of releasing the scars of the past and opening the heart. The links are on my YouTube channel and below in this video, www.essen.co.uk, to learn more about these programs and sign up if you seek true healing, because this video only scratches the surface. The actual healing changes everything. You go from knowledge to embodied shift in energy. And finally, if you agree that this video covers some really important topics that can not only make the family home a safer, more connected, more integrated place, but the planet a safer place, then please subscribe to this channel and share the video so that the word can travel. It means a lot. Thank you.